Denny Hamlin?
Huh?
Isn't it Denny Hamlin?
It is Den. So, okay. So when I used to work for NASCAR, I had a driver on my series named Kevin Hamlin, who is now a spotter on the Cup Series, or was for a long time. So Denny Hamlin, the guy you might actually know, yeah, that's embarrassing.
All right, welcome back everyone to This and That. Time for another coffee chat with the Harras. And this week we're going to be talking a little bit of economic data, particularly some employment data came out this week. So
yes.
Scott's going to be talking about that. On the real estate side, I'm going to be talking a little bit about some down payment assistance programs that are out there. And so those are good options for folks if they just don't quite have the funds to make their full down payment. And then get into a little bit of what has happened in this past week.
Yes, yes indeed. All right.
And a little more 4th of July coming up. So
a little bit, yes.
Happy 4th, everyone.
Yes, happy Independence Day.
Yes.
Unless you're from Britain, then it's a big insurrectionist kind of day for you guys.
I don't think we have a big British population watching our videos. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but.
Probably not. But just in case, you know, we don't want to be.
You just had to rub it in.
We didn't want to be exclusive. You know, we wanted to make sure we're an inclusive. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of friends in Britain.
I know you do.
Yes.
That's because of all your hobbies.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So if you're watching.
Friends from Britain. Sorry.
Sorry, we won that one. And you know what? We're getting good in cricket too now, so watch out. The one sport that you could hold dominion over, we are now encroaching upon. So.
Where are you watching your cricket? That's what I want to know.
I am not watching cricket, but I am seeing that our youth team beat England. I think they beat India. And I don't know why cricket is taking off in the United States, but apparently it is. And
so it's not our professional team that's good. It's our up-and-coming team that in 10 years might be good.
Yes, but I think the men's national team did well also. But yeah, so
I know zero about this topic. So.
Yeah, while our attempts at becoming good at soccer at the men's level have been horrible, the women have it down pat, but
yeah, don't blame the women for this.
No. And there might be a little rant later on about the United States men's national team and what's going on there. I don't know. I might save that for another week because I do have a lot of things to go over later on. Boy, we've gone right off the rails, haven't we?
That's okay. That's what post-production's for.
I don't think I can fix this. All right, so you're the host this week, so let's see if you can get us back on track. I think the answer to that is no.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
On that note, we have a little recap of the economic data from last week that we were still waiting on when we recorded. So do you want to cover that to start with?
Sure. The last item that we were waiting for last week came out on Friday, and that was basically the consumer consumption index. You know, what are people buying and what are they paying for that? Previous 2 months, if you recall, had gone up 2.7%. Last month went up an expected 2.6%. So not a huge or sizable change. It's still above the 2% that the Fed look at, but this is one of the important items that they look at every quarter when making decisions on interest rates. So came in as expected, which is good. Came in still higher than target, not good, but at least it wasn't a surprise in the wrong direction.
To be determined on trend where this goes
Yes.
going forward still.
Yes. And then do you want to talk about, you want me to talk about?
Yeah, do you want to, so this week the numbers that came out were heavily employment related, so.
Correct. And so, yeah, the jobs numbers came out this week. It's a fairly light reporting week because of the holiday. So just let me put on my glasses here for just a second. The ADP's report of private payroll came out this week. The expected number was an increase of 160,000. The number that ADP reported was 150,000. So a little bit lower than expected. Weekly jobless claims, which is a federal number, increased by 4,000 to 238,000 this week. So a slight increase in unemployment claims there. Continuing claims rose another 26,000. So this is an indication of long-term unemployment. So 1.85 million people are still unemployed and looking for work. We're still at historic lows. Let's not get that wrong. But what we're looking at is the job market softening, which is a leading indicator of potential recession, which again influences the Fed's decisions on interest rates. So in combination, there isn't any bad news if you're looking for lower interest rates. I don't say that there's outstanding good news either. And as we talked about last week, a lot of folks are anticipating a rate cut in September. We'll see. I don't think we're getting strong enough indications through June for that yet, but we'll see what happens in July and August.
I think sort of the awkward situation that we're in here is that if you're looking to buy a home and you're waiting on these rate cuts, we need bad economic data to get those rate cuts. So we need the economy to worsen, which is not normally the situation that you're in. You're not hoping for a bad economy.
Well, especially if you become part of that bad economy, then that is not a great deal in your home buying efforts if you're
Right.
one of the folks that get laid off or something like that.
Right. So it's sort of this weird situation that we're in where we are looking for bad news to help with long-term good news.
We're looking for moderately bad news, not bad news. Yeah. So now what is interesting, as I talked about last week, the housing industry really leads the economy. Mm-hmm. And digging into the ADP numbers, housing added 15,000 jobs last month. So it is one of the first things you want to look for if you're really going to be heading into a recession or something like that is the housing industry shedding jobs, and they didn't do that this last month. So that's holding fairly steady.
I wonder if that will indicate a reversal of last month's housing
starts.
Yeah, and
or
sales.
New home sales. Yes.
Yeah. If they are adding, that tells me that they have demand still.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Yeah. It's like you said, one data point is not a trend.
Right.
I learned that probably in Economics 101.
Many moons ago.
It was a while ago.
Anything else on the economic data side from you today?
No. Like I said, it was a little bit light this week, so not surprising that it's limited data. So okay.
All right. Well, let me get myself prepared here.
I'll take a sip of coffee while she gets prepared. I gave her all week to get ready for this, and she's still.
Hey now. I have all my tabs nicely lined up here.
Okay.
And my notes on my phone because one of us is digital.
Analog.
Generational differences. Anyway, so down payment assistance. And I'll get to in a little bit why I'm bringing this up now. But in general, down payment assistance is typically either a grant or a loan given to a buyer to help them bridge the gap between the money that they already have saved and what they need to make their down payment and closing costs and all of that to be able to actually get into the home. So they might qualify for the payments, but they might just not have that cash saved up to do the down payment. And so that's where these down payment assistance programs come in to help cover that difference. So there are some benefits to them, namely you get into the house sooner, which potentially means more equity build over time because you're in the house now, not 2 or 3 years from now. And then often, but not always, these programs have forgiveness at some point. So often if it's a loan, it's like a second loan that is forgivable after a certain number of years. It might just be a flat out grant to begin with. And so you don't have to necessarily repay this money unless you sell or refinance before the term ends on whatever the forgiveness is. So those are some of the advantages of using down payment assistance programs. Some of the downsides is that often you end up with a higher interest rate, and the more down payment assistance you go for, the more the rate increases. And so if you're getting 4% assistance rather than 2% assistance, that's going to be potentially a higher rate even still. And so when we're already talking about higher rate environments right now, adding on even more can be difficult.
So it almost, some of these programs, the downside more than outweighs the benefit of helping out with the down payment, because some of the programs have ridiculously high mortgage rates. For a small amount of money, you're going to be paying for multiple times down the road at the current rates for some of these programs. So looking at your local down payment assistance programs, you want to make sure you shop carefully because they can provide a big difference. And you're going to provide an example or two of that and how dramatic the difference is between one of the programs that we have in the local area and another program that we have.
Yeah. And some of the other potential issues with using down payment assistance is that there are often occupancy requirements. And so you have to be living in the house. You have to plan to live in the house. It's not necessarily something that you can do as an investment property unless you're buying a multi-unit property and you're living in one. But again, you still have to be living in part of that property. And then there are also sometimes more specific criteria. So there might be income limits to it. There's your typical credit score requirements, your debt to income limits, all of those sorts of things. But often either the location of the property, there can be restrictions on where these programs can be used, or there are the income limits. And so that can exclude some people who might want to use them. And then some of them are also first-time homebuyer specific.
Yes.
Which typically means you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, which I know is kind of a confusing term. But typically first-time homebuyer requirements mean you have not owned within the last 3 years.
Right.
So also can be a limiting factor for people. That being said, sometimes lenders will recommend, if it's an option, that you see if there's family members or someone like that can help cover the gap that the down payment assistance would normally cover.
Through a gift.
Through a gift, because you can do pretty sizable gift funds from family now and not have that count against any of your loan process or tax implications, that sort of thing. But again, not everyone has that opportunity. Particularly our first generation home buyers aren't going to necessarily have that family.
I always wanted a rich uncle. I didn't have one.
Yeah. We kind of failed on that one.
Yes.
So local to the Tucson, Pima County area, one of our programs is the Pima Tucson Home Buyer Solution. And so their product is a 3-year forgivable loan unless you start getting into the higher down payment assistance categories, more assistance, and then they switch to a 30-year forgivable loan. And so then there's a good chance you're probably not living in that home that full 30 years, and then that amount of money basically prorates over the time when you sell it, and then you are paying back what you haven't used, yeah. For this program, the income limit is a little over $126,000 right now. So not a bad income limit for our area and what households would often be making here. Credit score is 640 or higher, and debt to income ratio is less than 45%, although there may be some exceptions to that. So that's sort of the stats behind our program here.
So that one's pretty open for a majority of the folks that live in Pima County and that
Yes.
might be looking to buy a home.
And that might need down payment assistance.
Yes.
And this program offers this for both government loans and conventional loans. There can be different rates depending on the product. And again, how much it goes up depends on the assistance and the product that people are getting. But again, if there's no other way to get into a home,
Yes.
this is an option. And then the reason that I bring it up now is because this program has had sort of an additional section of the program called LightHouse. And we're currently on LightHouse 4.0 right now. And next week, we are going to have LightHouse 5.0 come out. And so on Wednesday next week is tentatively planned to be the lock date for the rate on that. Funds currently planned to become available on Thursday next week. And previously, when this program has rolled out, it's been a flat 4% down payment assistance. That's your option, is you get 4%. This one's a forgivable 5-year grant loan.
Right.
And the rate on this one has been kind of around 1% lower than what market rate has been for zero assistance. And so the rate on this one is actually better than what it has been across the market. And so these funds have been going really, really quickly.
Yes.
Because a lot of people obviously have been interested. You get the assistance, 4% assistance, you get a lower rate for it, and it's still a forgivable loan into the future.
Yes.
So if this is something that you are potentially interested in, there's a list of lenders that basically have to be approved by the program to be able to use it. One of the lenders that we often use is approved to do
Yes.
it, and she's familiar with this program. And so this is something that is of interest. It's a good time to get on it when these LightHouse funds are available.
Yes.
I don't necessarily know how many rounds of LightHouse are going to keep coming up, but while it's happening, it's a really great program for buyers until rates do drop.
And the money tends to go fairly quickly.
Yes.
So if you're in the market and you think you need down payment assistance, now's the time to get with an approved lender and have that conversation so you can see where it is that you actually fall in the eligibility basis and which programs you're more likely to be able to subscribe to. And then if you're going to make that decision, you have to have a property in mind when you...
Yeah.
So you
have to be under contract to
Yes,
lock the rate
to lock
for
the
that
rate.
property,
Exactly.
which locks the funds for you, basically.
Yes.
And then I think the last thing that I will say is that Pima Tucson has a pretty good website with more information on this. And so they have some just like did you know parts to their website. And then they also have a home buyer's checklist in both English and Spanish on their website. And so it gives you an idea of what you might need and what qualifications are. So again, I can demonstrate that I can qualify on income for the household of $126,000 or less. I have, the copies of all of my payment stubs and credit cards and all of those sorts of traditional items that you would need. And then also I've selected an approved home buyer's education course because that is part of this program as well, to do home buyer education. Again, a lot of first-time home buyers, so that makes sense to have part of that as this program.
It's fairly traditional for all the first-time home buyer programs, whether you're talking about a local program or an FHA loan from the federal government. Those often include a educational program that you're required to take. So the idea is we're committing funds to you. We want to make sure we arm you with the tools to make sure you're using these funds wisely and that you're making the right decisions going forward so that you don't get yourself into financial trouble and end up losing the house, because they don't want that.
Right.
The idea is to get you into a home and keep you in a home. And so if you have to sit and through a few classes, all the better.
Yep. Weekend in review. I know you have lots of items because you were pretty much homesick for most of the last week, and so you got to watch lots of sports.
I did, because I was not well. And yesterday thought I was better, and then played in a golf tournament, and it clearly demonstrated I am not 100% recovered yet. So, but yes, it did allow me to watch a lot of different sports. First one I want to talk about is we're going to talk soccer. So if you need to skip forward a little bit, if you're not a soccer fan. So every 4 years, there's the European Championship, 2 years off from the World Cup. And the defending champions of the Euros is Italy. And Italy made it out of the knockout or the stage phase into the knockouts, where they were quite frankly upset by Switzerland. I watched that game. If you have told me that Italy were the defending champions, I would not have believed you. Switzerland dominated the game through and through. There was no sign that Italy was a top-notch European team in that game, and Switzerland won 2-0. And it was a rather embarrassing ouster of the defending champions. So I thought that was rather interesting. Mm-hmm. On the same note, England did their best to lose to Slovakia, having to score a goal in the 94th minute to tie the game. They were going to play 95 minutes, so that's how late in the game. They had 5 minutes of stoppage time. And then redeemed themselves by scoring in the first couple minutes of extra time to knock out Slovakia, who basically had spent themselves. They were out of gas at that point in time, playing a much better, higher caliber team than themselves. The fact that they scored early and then played stellar defense for the rest of the game. Tip of hat to Slovakia. England, you're going to have to do better in the knockouts going forward to have a chance at the European title.
And England plays Switzerland.
So that'll be interesting. If Switzerland plays like they did against Italy, England's going to have a hard time scoring. Now, it's another week, it's another game, so who knows? It's soccer. You never know what you're going to get. So it'll be interesting. It'll be good watching.
I think just from the Euros, what I had was Georgia making it out of their group round and into the knockouts to then have to face Spain, who seems to be on quite the roll. But that was a fun match to watch last week.
Yes.
And see them. Portugal, I think. Is that who they beat? Yeah. Beat Portugal 2-0.
Yes.
So that was a good game to get to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you're seeing some of what we would refer to as the minnows in Europe kind of rising up and giving the big nations a real run for their money. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First time Georgia had played in the Euros.
Yes.
So that was big too, just to get there and then to get out of group stage.
Yep, absolutely.
I was going to say, do you have anything on Copa America since we're on the soccer topic?
Oh, yes. So another big tournament that's going on in the world of soccer is the Copa Americas, which is select teams from CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, which are the North America, basically, and Central America versus South America clubs. And I've watched a number of games. It's being hosted here in the United States. And it's some of the most atrocious refereeing I have ever seen. And the classic, and I'm not saying this is why the United States lost to Venezuela, but the referee has pulled out a yellow card to issue a yellow card to one of the U.S. players, which then requires an administrative stop in play, and then notices that one of the Venezuelan players has put his hand on top of the ball to stop the ball and then has restarted play, and then he signals advantage. Well, that's not how that works. If he felt that there was advantage to be had, he had to signal that before, and then he can come back during the stoppage and issue the yellow card. Yeah. It was it was not good. And it was just kind of highlighted the level of refereeing throughout. And these are referees from all of North and South America. So it's not, against one country or another, but I think they could have brought higher caliber referees with more experience. This one, that was his first match in Copa America and only his 6th international match that he had ever refereed. And it was obvious he was in over his head. There are a number of other calls in there. For example, an American gets his ankle absolutely stomped on and he gives the yellow card to the American. Again, not why America lost. Another rant coming not today about the state of the United States men's team. They got to figure it out. This is supposedly I'm going to go on a little bit of the rant, even though I said not today. This is supposedly the golden generation for American soccer, where you have most of the members of the U.S. men's national team play in Europe with their clubs. So they're playing top level soccer on a regular basis. They should be doing better than to not make it out of the group stage in the Copa America.
Yeah.
So we'll have maybe more of a conversation about that on another day. Let's talk about NASCAR.
Okay. I saw the last 10 minutes of that race.
Well, Nashville, 2 weeks in a row, I think NASCAR put on a good show. This week they were at the Nashville Superspeedway, which is a concrete 1.3 mile track just outside Nashville. It's kind of a placeholder track while they refurbish the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which is drips with history as far as NASCAR. A lot of the top drivers from the 70s and 80s came from Nashville Fairgrounds. So there's a lot of history there. They're trying to bring the track back. And the plan is that we'll have short track racing there. I think that Nashville Superspeedway, unfortunately, might then drop off the calendar because they have put on some very good racing at this concrete 1.3 mile track. This last week was highlighted by the fact that you can tell it's getting close to the playoffs, and some of the drivers that need a win are pushing things. Drivers that are in the playoffs, wanting more playoff points, are pushing things. And so we had set a record for the most overtimes because drivers kept on running into each other on that first lap of the green-white checkered to end the race. And it was
entertaining.
It was entertaining, and you can tell the tempers are getting short. I think that Kevin Hamlin easily had the best car there.
Denny Hamlin?
Yeah, Kevin Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin?
Huh?
Isn't it Denny Hamlin?
It is Den. So, okay. So when I used to work for NASCAR, I had a driver on my series named Kevin Hamlin, who is now a spotter on the Cup Series, or was for a long time. So Denny Hamlin, the guy you might actually know, God, that's embarrassing. Anyway, Denny Hamlin clearly had the best car, but after, 3 restarts, he finally ran out of fuel and had to come into the pits. So anyway, very entertaining racing. It'll be interesting to see how things look this week. If some of those feuds carry over from last week, probably will. So the temperatures get hotter, drivers' patience gets shorter, getting closer to the playoffs. It's fun.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with how NASCAR playoffs works, because this is a relatively new thing in NASCAR, it used to just be you run to the end of the season and then whoever has the most points wins. With the playoffs, it's a win and you're in, basically.
Yes.
And the top 16 teams get to go to the playoffs. And so if you're 17 and below, your season is basically done 7 races before the end of the season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more pressure to actually win races and not just be consistently good, consistently top 5 or top 10.
Right.
It might get you in on the points, but if you happen to have 16 different winners in a season, which a couple years ago I think we had 15 different winners.
Right.
And so that makes that bubble of do you have enough points get real tight real fast.
Yes.
The more individual winner or unique winners that you have each year.
Yeah, and one of the drivers that's on the outside looking in right now is Kyle Busch, and he has not had a great season, and he was running up towards the top during the overtimes, and he had the misfortune on one of the restarts that I think it was Kyle Larson ran out of fuel, and so Kyle had to check up, and the car behind him just absolutely drove into the back of him, sent him into the wall. So that ended his race, and his frustration level is at maximum right now. We're talking DEFCON 4.
Kyle Busch and no patience, not a good combination.
Yes, so he'll be interesting to watch. Do you want to talk a little bit about Formula One and what went down in Austria?
Sure, that was kind of the one sporting event that I was able to watch this weekend. Not live, and so I knew what happened before I got to watch it. But if you missed it, the gist is Max Verstappen and Lando Norris got into each other.
And this time it's the outside line. Oh, they make contact. He's got a puncture. He's damaged his front wing. The leading contenders for the World Championship come together at turn 3. Nice.
A few times, and in the end, wrecked each other. Enough that Lando was out of the race, and Max ended up 5th, I believe.
Yeah, he ended up 5th. They both ended up with punctured tires.
Yeah.
As a result of their contact.
And I think I saw something like 250,000 euros or pounds or whatever the calculation was of damage to Lando's car.
Yeah, Lando, I think, was so frustrated that he did not nurse his car back, which then had the tire disintegrate and basically tear out a lot of the rear diffuser and wing structure of his car, and these are not cheap parts.
Yeah.
So
George Russell, right place, right time, sitting in 3rd, basically got to take what was left from that and go win the race for his first win of the season, 2nd win overall.
Yes.
Mercedes' first win of the season. I think Mercedes is looking a little bit stronger, maybe not McLaren or Red Bull strong still, but possibly stronger than Ferrari now.
Clearly not as strong as McLaren. I would caveat the Red Bull to there's Max Red Bull and there's Checo Red Bull.
Yeah.
And they're not as good as Max Red Bull, yeah. But I think they're every bit as good as Checo Red Bull.
Yeah. I think so too.
So Checo's got to get it figured out.
He just got a new contract for 2 years.
Yes. I have a feeling.
I think surprised everyone.
Yes. So I think there's a performance clause. There's rumors of a performance clause in there.
I would not be surprised.
So if the performance isn't there, then Red Bull can terminate his contract. The other thing I was going to say is tip of the hat to Haas
Yes.
Racing. They finished 6th and 8th at Austria and jumped a spot in the constructors competition. Today they announced a multi-year contract with Ollie Bearman to fill Nico Hülkenberg's seat. Nico was hired by Audi to be the German driver in their new team that they are forming out of the Sauber team. So, yeah, big
Going
news there.
Going into 2026.
Yes.
He has 1 year of driving around in a car that's going to be probably worse than the car he's driving right now.
It's hard to say which is worse right now, the Williams or the Sauber.
The Haas is better than the Sauber.
The Haas is better than the Sauber.
Going into this weekend, they're at Silverstone, going to England to race.
Yes.
I think this will be another interesting one between Lando and Max. Possibly Oscar in there also in the other McLaren.
Yes. I mean, Oscar finished a great race considering
where he started.
He finished second, and it was clear in the post-race interviews that
he could have been first.
Yeah, he had the best car, but because he had to start so far back and work his way through the field, he just wasn't able to get there. And it was just a minute qualifying mistake where he got a track limits that disqualified his, I think, second fastest lap in qualifying, second or third fastest.
I think,
yeah. So he would have been right there. He would have been where Russell was.
He would have inherited that win, basically.
Yes. So, yeah, it was, for a fairly short track or lap time, they packed a lot of action into that race this last weekend at Austria.
Oh, yeah. And there was the Alpine boys going at it.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the Haas boys did too, but they settled down and
yes,
eventually addressed that they had Checo to deal with rather than fighting themselves. But the Alpine boys, especially I think with Ocon leaving at the end of the year, is just going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Yeah, and when Gasly finally got past Ocon, I can never say his name. It's French. I have no chance.
And he brought me along because he thought I spoke French.
My German heritage just doesn't allow me to pronounce French words or names. But his
ciao.
Ciao, as he passed him,
Yeah. I'm sure that didn't go over well.
Those two do not like each other.
And that goes back years and years.
Yes.
That goes back to karting.
Yes. When they're young. So nothing's changed.
No.
Everybody knew it was going to be a dumpster fire when they put the two of them together. Everybody but Alpine thought that. It's now more than demonstrated itself.
Well, Alpine's made a lot of questionable driver moves in the last few years, so.
Well, that is true too. Yes.
This is not out of character for them, I would say.
Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't picked up, we do follow F1 fairly closely and do enjoy it. So.
My weekend was spent getting our floors prepped for the new flooring going in that my mom and I have been working on. Hiring contractors to put the flooring in, but we are ripping out the old flooring. So that has been a multi-week project that we have been doing. And so I did not watch a lot of live sports or do a whole lot else this weekend because we were doing floor work. But out of this, it has come up of, my mom been asking me, what are you seeing that's in? What are the interior design trends? Is gray still in? And I will say, I'm pretty confident in saying that the all gray, everything gray is out. I think people have finally moved past that. I think as agents, we've moved past that.
Oh, yeah.
Quite some time ago. And that's slowly, I think, working its way to homes, beyond just like new build homes and model homes where they can quickly change what it looks like and how they stage. But as a whole, I'd say we're seeing less all gray homes. It was really interesting because we've been shopping Facebook Marketplace a little bit to buy some kind of last minute staging items as we get ready to put it on the market here eventually. And pretty consistently what we're seeing is gray items on Facebook Marketplace. So people are getting rid of those items. Obviously they're buying other colored furniture and the gray ones are the ones that are going.
Yeah. So what's the new in color?
So been seeing a lot of beiges, tans, ivories, that sort of color wheel. Not the stark whites that we had and not so much the like white, gray, black that we had.
So I kept my decor here long enough. That's now in.
It's back in, yes.
Oh, very good. See, if you hold on to things long enough, everything comes back except for maybe avocado green.
So that's funny you say.
Harvest gold. Yes, I know. It's kind of trying to come back.
So I was going to say, so on the color palette, sort of the warm minimalism, which I think is the counter to the cool minimalism that we had kind of COVID era time.
Right.
So warm minimalism being those beiges and ivories and whatnot. But green is in also, and this is both color green and sort of the indoor-outdoor living idea of green,
Yes.
as well as the eco trends of green. So green in kind of all of its ways is in right now. And so seeing more sage greens come in, more accent walls, accent pieces that are green.
Okay.
And then the greenery of plants. I mean, I feel like plants never really totally went out, but
Well, I will tell you, there was a time in the 70s that most people's living rooms looked like jungles. So to that extreme, they have phased out, but yeah, people have always
I feel like
tended to have plants in their homes and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
succulents have, I think, been in for the last decade probably.
yeah,
And I think we're adding.
low maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. The plant that you can't kill, almost can't kill. So I think the succulents and like the herb gardens and then a little bit more greenery is sort of making its way back in. And then particularly on the higher end side of homes, we're seeing more of the eco trends come back in.
Yes.
And in a place like Arizona, this makes a lot of sense because you're battling the high heat, the high temperatures in the summer.
Yep.
And so if you have sun, what can you do with it? And so that could mean solar panels, although not to go on a rant here, we have our own issues with the whole solar industry. So just be super careful if you do decide to get solar that you really read that contract and you make sure if there are price increases over time on that contract, if you're not buying it outright, that in the future it still makes sense relative to what your electric costs are right now. So I was talking about eco green, solar being one that we see across the board price-wise actually on homes. Another being rainwater harvest collection systems.
Yes.
And that again can be any priced home. But when you get into the higher end homes, you'll start seeing designs that work with the landscape and the sun more. And so you might have all of your windows on the south side to pick up that winter sun and like no windows on the west side of the home so that when it's really hot in the summer, there's not.
And when you talk about the south side, there's also an eave that goes out so that when the sun's lower in the horizon in the wintertime, the sun's able to get under that eave.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, it's now above that eave, and so those windows are in the shade.
Right.
So it makes sure it looks at the angle of the sun at the different times of the year. When do you want that light coming in and warming things up, and when do you not want that light coming in and warming things up? Yes.
Exactly. And so more of those sorts of design aspects, when we're talking about folks who can afford to do those sorts of things, are working their way in as part of the green colors, green plants, indoor outdoor living, green eco is all what's sort of been coming in here lately.
Yeah, and something I'm sure that we'd love to take more advantage of here, but because most of Arizona is lava, you don't see a lot of basements in Arizona.
Yeah.
And one of the big advantages of basements is once you get a certain, I think a couple feet down in the ground, the temperature is constant. It's about 55 degrees. And we would really be able to take advantage of basements here, but the expense of digging out all that rock outweighs any benefits you might have over the life of the house for that. But
the exception is your older homes, your 100-year-old homes,
Yes.
more in the central part of Tucson. They may have basements.
Yes,
We sold one
we sold one with
a basement.
Yes.
Not a finished basement, a very sketchy ladder to get down to the basement. More of probably used as a cellar for keeping food cool
Right.
when it was originally built. But a really cool feature if it were to be finished at some point.
Yeah.
And certainly your coolest part of the house.
Yeah, so it would maintain a temperature year-round
Yeah.
at a fairly comfortable. Now, we had it on the home tour, and we had a number of realtors come through that property, and they were just,
They loved it.
they loved it. They thought, that's like a speakeasy, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know that the new owner is going to turn it into a speakeasy, but it'd be pretty cool.
yes, it would have been. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, that's some of the color trends. Along with the kind of the minimalism, I'll say that we're seeing a little more personality come through. I think with the cool minimalism that we were seeing, it was a little devoid of personality. And so now we're seeing a few more pops of color in key strategic places. So it might be that you have, a bright accent chair, or you paint one wall rather than, the whole room, those sorts of things. So color is coming back in, just it's being done, I think, a little bit more strategically and in kind of certain places as accents rather than the whole room.
Yeah, I've seen in some of the appliance studios where all the appliances are the same color except for the oven and stove, and that's your pop of color in the kitchen. Yeah. Whereas instead of having everything be matchy-matchy, you have that one item that provides that accent, and it's kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
All right, what's coming up that you're looking forward to?
So I have a little 4th of July thing. Do you have anything before we get into this?
I'm just happy to be well enough to be sitting in this chair having this conversation with you. So my planning's kind of day to day right now.
At least your Whoop's not telling you have a skull 1% recovery.
Yes. So at the worst of my illness, so I wear a Whoop. All top athletes wear a Whoop. Some other users of the Whoop include people like Nelly Corda on the LPGA. Lando Norris wears one. Where after the Miami Grand Prix that Lando won, he also joined the club that I joined of having 1% recovery. And this is after me getting 8.5 hours of sleep, but because I was struggling breathing so much during the night, I got 1% recovery, which puts me in the 0.5% of all Whoop users have had 1% recovery. So I and Lando, being the top athletes that we are, have something in common.
Yeah, the difference being he had just won his first Grand Prix and you were sick in bed.
Yeah, he probably did not sleep that night, may have partaken in a few adult beverages to celebrate, things like that, where I was just trying to get rest. Mm-hmm. Where this and that goes and takes us is beyond believable sometimes.
So,
what was the point of all that?
Your day-to-day plans. Because
oh, yes.
You don't know what you're doing yet coming up.
No.
So, I do have something for us in honor of it being 4th of July this week.
Oh, I do have one other thing.
Oh, okay.
But you go first.
We can finish with mine because mine's fun.
Okay. So, I discovered yesterday, well, first of all, let's rewind. You will learn, if you haven't already, that Kellie and I are a bit of nerds. We are huge Lord of the Rings fans. So when a couple weeks ago, the extended version of the Lord of the Rings was re-released over a 3-week period, at least here in Tucson.
I think that was nationwide.
It was nationwide, but they did it in different formats in different cities. Some cities did it all in one weekend. Other cities did showings of the Fellowship of the Ring one weekend, Two Towers the next weekend, and the Return of the King the third weekend, which is how Tucson did it. And so, of course...
We did it each day in a row. Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
So I've been not well lately. Yes, that is true. Uh-huh. Yeah, we did it 3 days in a row. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that kind of, when I saw that in honor of Columbia Pictures' 100th anniversary, that they were going to re-release Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I thought, hey, here's another chance to go see a nostalgic movie from 1977, Spielberg classic, that my daughter had never heard of.
I would say I've heard of, just have never seen.
Okay. All right. So I am trying to, so our showings in Tucson here are on Sunday, this coming weekend, and on Wednesday. So I am trying to see if I can get her to go see this classic movie, much of it shot in Arizona, with me. But I'm not sure I've won that battle. I might just have to go to the movie on my own. So go see Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If you haven't seen the film, it's well worth going to see if you have this opportunity in your community. And if you remember it as a youth or otherwise, it might be time to go see one of Steven Spielberg's classics.
Yeah, you're dating yourself a little.
Well, I am old.
We know.
I'm going to have a real challenge editing this. I can see that now.
Okay. Is that all?
Well, I do want to point out one other thing. We know that the battery has died. Well, actually, it moved, but it is behind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have to replace the battery in the clock. So, yeah.
They don't know what time we recorded this.
No. We are drinking coffee, though.
We are drinking coffee.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, are you done?
I think so. You know, if another synapses fires, you never know where I might go.
Okay. Well, in honor of two things. One, us calling these videos this and that, and it being 4th of July, I thought we'd play a little game of this or that 4th of July food edition.
Oh.
I sprung this on him. He did not know that this was coming, so he has had no prep of answers here.
Okay.
So this or that. Okay. Burgers or hot dogs?
Burgers.
So I had time to think about this one, and I think I decided that I would go hot dogs if it's like a Sonoran dog. And I recognize the irony of me saying a Sonoran dog on an American holiday, but all of the toppings on a Sonoran dog make it really good. And
there's no question of that, but that's a lot of work also.
Well, so I think for me, the difference is that for the last, decade and a half, I've been eating hot dogs and hamburgers without the bun.
Yes.
And when you're eating a loaded hamburger, you can't really go all Guy Fieri on it without a bun. Right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's all going to fall apart when you try to do that.
Yes.
And so when you're talking about eating hot dogs or hamburgers with a fork and knife, which is pretty much what I do, I can get more of the toppings of a Sonoran dog into one bite with a hot dog than I can with a hamburger. It's a lot harder to stack all of the hamburger pieces into one bite. And so I think my enjoyment of hamburgers is somewhat lessened by the fact that I don't have a bun to have it all mix at one point.
There's a lot of deep thought that went into that answer where I just went burger.
Now, if we're talking just your traditional, basic burger versus basic hot dog, then I'm probably going burger.
Okay. Fair enough.
That was my thought on that
Now,
one.
mind you, all the cool things you can put on a Sonoran dog, you can put on a burger.
Are you going to put beans on a burger?
Some people do.
Okay. Well,
I couldn't name anybody, but I'm sure somebody does.
Well, Sonoran dogs are really good.
Yes, they
and
are.
I can stick it all on a fork just about.
Sam, the cooking guy, in one of his episodes, does Sonoran dogs because one of his sons went to the University of Arizona and introduced him to Sonoran dogs. So if you're not sure what a Sonoran dog is, or if you're not sure who Sam, the cooking guy is, he has an excellent cooking channel. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Think hot dog with bacon and beans and onions and jalapenos and sauces.
Salsa.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had a smoker and could smoke these items, brisket, ribs, or chicken?
Ooh. It's going to be a close one between the brisket and the ribs. I'm thinking I'm going to go with the ribs.
I was leaning towards ribs on that one as well,
Yeah.
especially with a good sauce.
Yes. Yeah.
Potato salad or macaroni salad?
Okay. Now I know what Kellie's answer is going to be on this one.
He 100% knows what my answer is.
You know, I like both.
Interesting.
I like both. I think for family tradition, though, I have to go with Grandma Erica's potato salad. Yeah.
German potato salad,
Yes.
to be specific.
Yes.
I 100% am going potato salad. I've never really liked macaroni salads to begin with. I think there's something about like the temperature and the texture just don't work for me.
Okay.
I don't know. They're kind of weird to me, even if I could eat them with normal ingredients in them.
Yes.
So 100% all day, every day, I'm picking the potato salad out of that.
Yeah, and maybe once we roll around to a different holiday, we will share with you Grandma Erica's secret German potato salad recipe, which
We've modified a little.
we've modified a little because of Kellie's dietary restrictions, but nonetheless,
It's
really good. Yeah.
Baked beans or corn on the cob?
Oh, that's a tough one because well-prepared corn on the cob, especially back in Oregon when we used to get picked that
Pick
day.
it, yeah. Shuck it and go make it all in the
yeah.
same day.
Yeah, corn on the cob, incredibly sweet, incredibly tender, really, really good. But
Butter and salt.
yes, and pepper for some people.
Butter and salt.
It depends on the baked beans too, because it has to be a really good, smoky, rich baked beans. And a lot of them just don't get up to that number. I'm going to go with corn on the cob.
This was definitely the hardest one for me because I agree. I really like both of these. If it's a really fresh corn on the cob, probably going that.
Yes.
If it's not sweet, juicy corn, then I'm going baked beans, whether or not they're that great.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I am. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have it right out of the field and it's sweet and it's tender and it's, oh my God, so good. Yes, but then again, really good baked beans, they're really good baked beans. So, yeah, that one's almost a draw.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat on that one.
Yeah.
Deviled eggs or coleslaw?
It's another one where I've had really good deviled eggs, and I've had, not good. Same thing with coleslaw, though. There are so many different styles of coleslaw that if it's not the style I like,
Yeah.
then I don't care for it. But if it's the style I like, I can eat it all day. So, was coleslaw and what?
Deviled eggs.
Deviled eggs. Don't go with coleslaw. Especially if you're having barbecued, shredded, whatever. The tang of a good coleslaw contrasting with the sweetness and the savoriness of a good pulled pork barbecue sandwich, for example, that's top notch right there.
Deviled eggs can have tang.
They can, but yeah, no.
So, despite the fact that I almost never eat eggs, and I don't really like a lot of egg things. I like eggs if they're baked into other things. I don't just like eggs. I love deviled eggs. That's like my favorite way of preparing just eggs. So I would probably pick deviled eggs on this one.
Okay, all right.
All right, strawberry shortcake or apple pie?
Going to go with strawberry shortcake. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with apple pie. Don't get me wrong, but the sweetness of really good ripe strawberries. Just, it's a nice dessert.
I think I'm probably going to go apple pie with like some vanilla ice cream on top. Still warm pie. Grandma
Yep.
Donna's pie crust recipe because it's better than the others.
Yes, yes.
It's flaky.
I mean,
and
you're not going to do wrong with either one.
no,
So, yeah.
but yes, I think the pies. But that could also be in part because that's what I grew up with.
Yes,
Mom's side of the family, holidays, it was always pies.
yes.
And pre-cut pies so that you didn't get to pick the size of slice you got. You just got the size of slice that they gave you.
Yes. Yeah.
Mom's side of the family traditions right there. Okay, last one. This is more of a yes or no. Red, white, and blue foods. So like a flag cake, the red, white, and blue popsicles, the fruit trays. Yes or no?
No,
No?
no.
Too much?
Too much.
Yeah, see, I don't mind them. I think they're kind of fun.
Your mom's side of the family.
Traditions.
Yes, traditions, yes. I mean, do I object to it? No. Do I think it's necessary? No.
Do you think it's a little corny?
It's a little corny, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fun. It's 4th of July.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right, well, that's what I have.
I'll be kind of curious to see if the viewers will put in the comments how they answered some of these questions.
Yeah. Yes, so if you have your own answers to this or that, share them with us.
Yeah.
I think that concludes this episode. We've gone off the rails multiple times on this one.
To be expected.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this format, because then we don't have to stay totally on topic.
We have no discipline.
Anyway, I think with that, we're going to conclude. We'll see you back here next week with our next episode where we talk about who knows what, something economics related, something real estate related, and a little of this and that.
A little of what happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find out if I went to the movie, if Kellie went with me or not. We'll see. It's supposed to be really hot on Sunday, so I can't think of a better way than spending an afternoon or evening in the theater where it's air conditioned.
We'll see. With that, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.